Every week, Question Time travels to a different part of the United Kingdom. Tonight we are in Swindon, in Wiltshire. Once famous for its railways, the town is now home to a growing finance sector and high-tech industries, including the manufacture of drones. And our audience members arriving here this evening, as every other week, reflect the general political picture across the nation. And tonight they want to ask about immigration, about the inquiry into grooming gangs, and Prince Andrew. Welcome to Question Time from Swindon. The government is Stephen Kinnock, the Minister for Care and MP for Aberavon-Maesteg. The son of the former Labour leader, of course. Before entering politics, he worked in Brussels, Russia, Sierra Leone and Switzerland, and speaks no less than 5 languages. Harriet Baldwin is a shadow trade minister for the Conservatives. She's been an MP since 2010 and served in the governments of David Cameron and Theresa May, and her long career in politics earned her a damehood last year. Mariella Frostrup has worked variously as an arts critic, an agony aunt, a travel writer and a TV and radio presenter. She's also the government's menopause employment ambassador. And Nadine Dorries is a columnist at the Daily Mail and a best-selling novelist. She served as culture secretary under Boris Johnson, but recently defected to Reform UK, saying the Conservative Party is dead. Good evening. Welcome to our panel. Great to see you. Welcome to our audience here in Swindon. Very good to see you as well. And of course, welcome to you at home. Thank you for watching the programme. Do join the conversation on social media if you feel so moved. Otherwise, just sit back and watch what's going on. Right, let's take our first question, which is from Michael Coughlin.
Hi there. Is this one-in, one-out policy working after one actually came back from France?
So, this has been a report today. This is a scheme launched by the government with France, that for every migrant that is returned from the UK to France, France would send one back here. And it is reported that one migrant who was sent back to France under this measure stayed there just a few weeks and then has come back again. And that's obviously not what the government would like, is it, Stephen?
Well, we are absolutely committed to smashing the gangs and to stopping these channel crossings.
But he has just come, I mean, it's just a matter of weeks and he's come straight back.
Yeah, and actually, I think that that sends a very clear signal, because he has now been detained and he is going to be sent straight back to France. So what that clearly says is, if you come here illegally, you will get sent straight back. He's just wasted, I don't know how much money he paid to a people smuggler. That sends a very clear signal to everybody on the other side of the channel who might be thinking of coming over here, that they will be wasting their money.
But this cannot be what you envisage, surely.
No, well,
they'll just get on another boat and come back again.
I don't know how much money these people want to carry on giving to people smugglers, but as we ramp up this pilot scheme, clearly it's going to take some time to get it to numbers where it will be sufficient to be a deterrent to everybody that might be thinking of getting on a small boat. But the principle of it is clear. If you come here illegally, you will be sent back. So why would you spend the money in the first place? But what I would also say is, the smugglers have had a 6-year head start on us because of the neglect and incompetence of the previous Conservative government. But since we came into power, we have deported 35,000 people from this country. We have doubled the rate of asylum decision-making. We have increased the deportations of unsuccessful asylum seekers by 30%. We've done the deal with France. We've got the Borders Bill going through, which will give the Border Security Command the kind of powers that counter-terrorism police have. We've done a deal with Germany where they're putting legislation through now to disrupt the supply chains and requisition the small boats that are coming through. There is no magic bullet for this. It is a complex situation. It's going to require a lot of time to clear up the mess that we inherited. But we are absolutely 100% committed to stopping these channel crossings and to smashing the gangs.
All right.
Well, Michael, clearly it isn't working. And this is just an example that illustrates perfectly that it isn't working. Since the pilot started, over 3,000 people have illegally crossed the channel, risking their lives. It is clearly not a success, and I think needs to be supplemented by a couple of other really important measures. And one of those is that we need to have a safe third country where we can take people who've come across the channel illegally. That was something that we had set up, was all ready to go before the general election, but sadly the government cancelled it. But that's clearly something that needs to be added. The second thing...
Also, you never managed to get it to work, in fairness.
Well, I think it would have got going.
We're talking about the Rwanda policy, obviously.
It was very early days and it got cancelled immediately. I urge the government to find somewhere, if they don't want to do Rwanda, but to find somewhere where they can take those steps. The second thing that needs to change is that anyone who crosses the channel illegally, risking their lives, in order to undermine the gang's business model, they shouldn't be able to claim asylum when they get here. So people who come to the country illegally shouldn't be able to claim asylum here. And I think if you start building up those deterrents, then there's much higher probability of the gangs stopping and finding that there aren't people who are prepared to pay the money than there clearly still are at the moment.
The man in the green shirt there, yes.
I've been working with refugees and asylum seekers for the last 3 years. I've got a couple of points to make. First of all, I'm not sure why there's so much focus on preventing people coming to the UK. It would be much more efficient and effective to fix the broken asylum system and, frankly, cruel asylum system that's currently in place. Second of all, regarding, again, stopping crossings to the UK, you're never going to stop people coming here. All that you're really doing is making people take more dangerous measures.
OK. A woman there in the black T-shirt, I think. Yes.
I just wondered if you could provide some transparency on how many gangs have been smashed so far.
Well, I don't think it would be wise for me on national TV to reveal exactly who we're going after and how.
But you can admit you don't know, Stephen, which I suspect is the answer, isn't it?
Well, as the Borders Bill goes through, the powers that we're going to have...
Yeah, but it's a different question. How many gangs have you smashed so far? That is not... There's no reason you can't reveal that.
There have been a number of stories about gangs that we have smashed. We have gone after Kurdish gangs that we've broken down. We've gone after gangs here in the UK.
I mean, Stephen is Minister for Care, in fairness. He's not the Immigration Minister, but I think it's fair to say you don't know.
Well, look...
and I'm giving you a reason not to know.
They've had a 6-year head start. We are beginning to get on top of it, but it is not something that can be solved overnight. One thing I would say...
OK, briefly, because I want to bring the audience in.
On Harriet's point about not doing any of the processing, well, that's one of the reasons why we've had an explosion in the number of asylum hotels in this country. We have cut the number of asylum hotels from 400
there are more
to
people
200,
in
and we have
asylum
pledged
hotels than
that
what
by the end of
when
this
you
Parliament there'll be
became a minister.
nobody in asylum hotels. If you don't process them, then that's what's going to happen, Harriet. They're going to carry on being in these hotels.
But you accept there are more people now.
Yeah, I find it amazing that a country of how great I believe we are, that we cannot protect our own borders and we've got people coming over in small boats. And I don't understand how that's happening and how we can't use our Royal Navy and actually protect our borders and send these people back.
OK, woman here in the front in the blue shirt.
Stephen, you just admitted how difficult the issue is to tackle, and yet the government continues to blame the last government for all the issues that are happening now. Is there no way that the parties can come together and have some cross-party work on this? Because it's a topic that keeps coming up now and again. It's very emotive, and it doesn't seem to be that any one party is going to be able to solve this issue.
Nadine.
So, the man in the blue shirt, you're absolutely right. It's incredible that we can't protect our own borders, and we never will be able to do that until we leave the ECHR, because it's
the European Convention on Human Rights.
Yes, and it's the courts that prevent us from being able to send many of these people back. Try deporting somebody who is in an asylum hotel in this country back to their place of origin, if you know what their country of origin is, because most of them actually just throw overboard their papers, their passports, if they have them, before they even get into the UK, which is part of the problem.
I mean, there are a number of countries in Europe, as I'm sure you know, that have reduced the number of people coming in and remain within the ECHR.
And the number was dropping when the Rwanda scheme was a viable deterrent. But of course, this government scrapped it as soon as they got in. It no longer became a deterrent. And Stephen, you can't blame
hang on, the judges stopped it as well. The court stopped it. So that's why it didn't get off the ground. And then Labour came in and they decided not to. And they did not continue.
And we're never, ever going to continue with it. And they made that clear during the general election. And you cannot blame the last government for the many thousands of people who've arrived illegally in this country since you came into power. You know this one in, one out scheme? We've sent 46 back out of thousands. 46 have gone back, but France have sent us 23. And out of those 46, one of them has come back again. It just isn't working. It is not a deterrent. And the only time or in the future when this problem is going to be dealt with any effectiveness and a plan is going to be delivered is when the two parties that have completely failed to control this have gone and Reform take power, because Reform are the only party who have a plan in stopping illegal immigrants coming to our shores. You may laugh, you may not, when
what is that
Reform
plan,
is
Nadine?
in
What
government.
is the plan?
Well, leaving the East HR is the first, most important part of that plan.
So is international cooperation not
and
an
as
important
the
part
young
of
man
stopping
said,
this thing?
we may
What
even
would
use
that do
the
to
Royal Navy.
What would leaving the ECHR do to international cooperation? Do you think it would help or hinder?
I don't, you know, when it comes to our borders, well, help or hinder is irrelevant. Help or hinder is totally irrelevant. Our job is to protect our borders. We're paying, I think it's £4 billion a year on asylum hotels at the moment. That's just on the cost of the asylum hotels. That's not on the resources that the NHS, that are being channeled into the NHS also, and into our public services. So, Stephen, it's not just a case of stopping people coming into our country, into asylum hotels and draining our finances. It's also a case of making sure that in the future that the UK can actually keep an NHS that's viable, keep an NHS that we can fund, because at the moment it's a black hole that money's going into because we have thousands of people arriving in our country. And it's about maintaining the integrity of our public services, because at the numbers that we have of people coming into this country at the moment, we simply cannot guarantee that.
Mariella.
I just don't know when we started dehumanising people to the extent that we do. I find it really shocking. I actually have to admire the chutzpah of the man who's tried twice to get to the UK. And I'm not saying that he should necessarily be allowed in and that he necessarily has the right, you know, qualifications for acceptance. But the fact that he wants to come here that badly, I mean, imagine if nobody wanted to come here, then we'd really be depressed about Britain as a nation, you know? So I mean, and I'm saying that in a light-hearted way, but I think that, you know, of course it's an issue. It was an issue before the boats, it was an issue with lorries, and it was an issue. But in that time, we've also decreased our budget for international development. It's gone down to 0.3%. We have a completely shambolic asylum system. You talk about people coming here illegally, but what are the legal routes? We still don't have proper legal routes. We've got conflicts all over the world. Okay, so I'm a woman in the Congo, and I'm one of the 80,000 women who's been raped as a result of the conflict that's going on there, completely unbridled, which is all to do with elements for our mobile phones. And I desperately need to escape. My family's been wiped out. What's my legal way of applying to come and join my sister who's here in the UK? It is impossible, and our system is completely broken, and I don't disagree with that. But I think the way in which we talk about people trying to come here and the way we completely ignore the dilemmas that they face and the fact that we have been instrumental as a nation in a lot of those conflicts and as a result, you know, what happened to Afghanistan when we were all absolutely determined that people from Afghanistan should be able to come here because of the way they supported us during that war? And now we're talking about them like they're rubbish on the street. I really think that, I think it's a shame that we're allowing Reform to set the tone and the agenda in the way we talk about illegal immigrants, and also we talk about people, asylum seekers. I think it's tragic.
A woman with a white sweater at the back, you had your hand up. Do you still want to say something? Yes.
Just got a simple question, really. Why is it that Poland can do all of this and we can't, as Great Britain? Why
do all of what?
Well, just allow everybody in. You know, in Poland, you can't go in. There aren't any illegal immigrants, but in the UK, you can come in any time, go to hotels. But there's people, English people, veterans, in the streets, like I saw in Swindon today.
OK, I'll let you come back. Let's take one more point. Yes, woman in the red top there with the glasses. Let's just get a microphone to you. There you go.
I think people need to really think also about the fact that we've got a dropping birth rate in this country and we need people to come. And actually we should be welcoming some of these people and what we can do for them.
And yes, you've got a suit and tie on there, yes.
I think the original question was about the one in, one out policy. And if the Rwanda policy ended up, you know, we had to pay people to leave, as I understand it. That is, then this policy of making people waste their money to come here, that is surely a step up, practically speaking.
OK, it's one way of looking at it. Let's see if you wanted to come in very briefly before I move on.
Very briefly, on the question about Poland. So when the United Kingdom was in the European Union, we were part of something called the Dublin Convention. The Dublin Convention enables any country that was a signatory to it to send somebody back to the first country where they tried to claim asylum.
But Britain
hardly
did that. But Stephen, Britain hardly did that.
Well, that is what a deterrent is.
Yeah, but we had we had the Dublin Convention, but we actually sent very few people back using that Dublin Convention.
Because it was a deterrent, because people weren't coming. Did the small
coming,
boats issue exist when we were in the European Union? Yes or no? No, it didn't. Because we were part of the Dublin Convention.
People came in lorries.
Who's the architect? Well, the lorry situation got sorted out by David Blunkett and Nicola Sarkozy long before that, when we were doing, we did cooperation around Calais and making that the border of the United Kingdom. So what happened when we left the European Union came out of the Dublin Convention. Of course, all the bright idea of somebody called Nigel Farage. That is why I think it's right to call these boats the Farage boats. These are the Brexit boats. When we left... When we left the Dublin Convention, we lost the ability to return people to the first country that they claimed asylum in. That's one of the reasons why it's working in Poland, because they are party to the Dublin Convention.
OK. I'm going to move on because I want to try and fit in all 4 questions tonight, and I suspect we will revisit this subject. Before I do, I want to tell you that we'll be in Bradford next week, and the week after that we're in Sunderland. So if you live in or close to Bradford or Sunderland and you'd like to come and be part of the audience and put your questions, apply to the website. All the instructions are there, and hopefully we shall see you. Right. Matthew Cox, where are you? Off you go. Let's hear your question.
Hi. Should the government step into the Prince Andrew debate, and what can it realistically do?
So, I don't know if you've noticed, but Prince Andrew's been a bit in the news this week. Obviously, new allegations have surfaced regarding his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. He's surrendered his titles. He's still a prince, but he is no longer the Duke of York and various other titles. And there are questions about his continuing residence at Royal Lodge in Great Windsor Park, where he did pay an upfront fee, a sizable fee, but he pays a peppercorn rent, so effectively nothing in rent. Should the government step in, and what can they realistically do, Nadine?
The government should not step in. They shouldn't go anywhere near it. That would set a precedent. You know, he's one bad apple. We should be very grateful for our royal family for all that they do, all the revenue they bring into the UK, for what they do for us globally, on so many levels. But Prince Andrew is a bad apple. And, you know, I'm a mother of 3 grown-up daughters, and I know that if I'd behaved in the way that Prince Andrew even begins to behave, they would be making an intervention. And I really feel sorry for Beatrice and Eugenie, because they're being besmirched by this. And we've seen our royal family diminish through death and illness in recent years, and they could be playing a very active role. But of course they can't because of their father. And if I were Beatrice and Eugenie, or if it's my girls, they'd be sitting him down and saying, pack your bags, get out, go and live somewhere else, go and live in a different country, it's over. But the problem is Prince Andrew doesn't seem to realise it is over. What he's done in the past through his relationship with Epstein has been not just unbelievable, but untenable in his position as a member of the royal family. He has to go. He has to pack his bags, he has to get out of Royal Lodge, he has to lock the doors, and he has to go. And the sooner he does it, the better. And I think the only people who can make him realise that are his own family and his own daughters, because he doesn't seem to be listening to anybody else.
I should point out, of course, given that Prince Andrew is not here, well, we've never asked him to come on the panel. I'm not sure he would. But
doubt it.
he is not here to defend himself. He has vigorously denied the allegations made by Virginia Giuffre.
Of course.
That he... Well, effectively,
But Fiona,
he had sex with her, that he's sexually assaulted. He is I have to say that. You know I do.
Yeah, but that's not even a
that's what he said.
substantive point. The point
No,
is...
it's a point of law that I have to point that out,
Absolutely.
as you know.
But the point is he's absolutely blackened the name of the royal family. While the king is over in Rome at the moment, meeting the Pope, while the king is trying in the post the death of the Queen to establish a new monarchy and modernising the monarchy, it's been absolutely dominated by Prince Andrew.
Okay.
He just has to go.
We certainly had a lot of questions on it tonight, which is why we're doing it. Yes, the man there in the dark glasses, yeah, in the blue sweater.
Should Prince Andrew not be exiled for his crimes?
Right, what, chucked out of the country altogether?
Yes.
Any idea where you think he should go? Okay. Very droll. Yeah, the man at the very back with the cap. There you go, baseball cap.
I'm actually quite shocked. I'm actually agreeing with you, Nadine, today. Anyway.
Well, you're saying you're shocked you agree with it?
Yes.
Okay.
Talk to me some more, you'll find there's loads.
I don't know. I think he's an embarrassment to this country, and he really needs the taxpayers actually paying for him to live in an accommodation, and it's just disgraceful.
What about the man there in the glasses and the black T-shirt towards the back?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a danger in referring to Prince Andrew as a bad apple, thinking that once, if it is true, once he's removed, then the whole problem's over. This was like a highly organised, horrific thing. I mean, who else was involved, and what sort of systems, what sort of environment is put in place where these people were abused in such an awful way?
Nadine was talking about the royal family.
Well, I was referring to bad apple and the royal family in the context of just the royal family. You're absolutely right. In the wider scheme of things, yeah, there are many questions to be answered.
So, just putting another point of view, Mariella, for the sake of argument. I mean, is there any sense, do you think? I mean, Prince Andrew, he's no longer getting an income from the royal family. He may have a private income or inheritance that we don't know about, but he gets no income from the royal family. He has no title anymore. He's effectively a pariah, I think it's fair to say.
Well, I certainly don't have sympathy for him. I mean, I think that he's dealt with this in a particularly clumsy and entitled way. But I'll maybe come back to entitled in a minute. You know, I mean, I don't think he's been properly apologetic to the victims. I don't think he's taken it seriously enough. The fact that he behaves in an entitled way, I find it ironic that that term is bandied around, because he is entitled. The royal family are entitled. They're entitled to inherit this position at the sort of pinnacle of British society. I think Prince Andrew, I also find myself curiously agreeing with Nadine in that I think he should go and live in some nice, you know, Swiss ski resort with his creepy friends, his creepy rich friends, and, you know, live out his life the way he clearly enjoys it. But I think that there's big questions that we should be asking about the place of the monarchy in our society at the moment. You know, we have this constitutional monarchy, which is in many ways at odds, I would say, with the parliamentary system and the democratic system we have. I think that the royal family are incredible. I think that the king, with all of his organic and environmental work, and the queen with all her work around literacy, and I read an amazing article the other day because Sophie, the Countess of Wessex, had gone to the DRC and taken this very dangerous trip to highlight
the Democratic
Republic of Congo, to highlight the issues particularly women were facing there. And so I think that they do great work, but you know, there's absolutely no transparency when it comes to finances. We scrutinise them to within an inch of their lives because of the fact that we pay such huge amounts of money for them to continue to live in the way that they do. And I think that's what we should be asking questions about at the moment. Clearly, Prince Andrew is you know, has you know, dirtied his hands in something that is totally abhorrent. And I find it really also, you know, very difficult to comprehend why what was clearly a grooming gang of rich, powerful men, the only people who have been very clear You know, well, one's been a recipient of justice in terms of Ghislaine Maxwell for her role in it, one woman, and another woman, Virginia Giuffre, you know, has committed suicide as a result of her experiences. Where are the men? You know, where are the guys that were involved with this? It's not just Prince Andrew. And I think we should be looking at that.
So, Harriet, should the government step in, and what can they realistically do? So just to fill everybody in, the government has said they'll not be making time for MPs to debate Prince Andrew in the Commons. And actually, there's all sorts of difficulties about debating the royals in the Commons. We can maybe come on to that. But the Public Accounts Committee is going to look into the lease arrangements for Royal Lodge. So they're going to have an investigation of that, and that has been supported by the government. Is this, I mean, there's lots of things the government should be doing. Is this something the government should be doing?
Well, I think these allegations are horrendous, and I think that the stain, the blot that they have created, particularly I thought serious last weekend was the allegation that Prince Andrew had asked the Met Police through his security detail to do some background investigations into Virginia Giuffre. And I think if that proves to be the case through these investigations that the Met are currently doing, I think that's an incredibly serious situation. But you're absolutely right that Parliament itself, and obviously I'm an opposition MP, I can't speak for the government, but I think Parliament does have the ability to scrutinise these types of issues. And I think that the government itself has got the power to provide time to Parliament in government time to debate them. But I think that the allegations are incredibly serious, particularly that one last weekend I thought was really, you know, just so shocking in terms of investigating her, that I think this story will continue. And to Mariella's point, I think I am passionate monarchist. I think we have been incredibly blessed to have a constitutional monarchy, and I'm a huge supporter of the royal family, and that's why I think this is such a serious situation, because clearly the great work that our royal family do, and as Mariella was outlining some of those examples, it is affected by the media coverage that we're getting all the time about these.
But they could do that great work without us being a
constitutional.
They could do those good works without us being a constitutional monarchy with completely, you know, opaque finances. You know, part of the reason we can't investigate Royal Lodge and so on is because there is no transparency with an awful lot of the money that goes to the royal family. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I absolutely, as I said, you know, they do great work, but maybe we should re-look at our relationship with them.
Okay. But this is why it's so serious, because people who are Republicans...
I'm not a Republican.
No, I'm not including you in that, Mariella, but I'm saying there are people who are Republicans. You know, they are using this. They are using this as a way to get at the royal family, and that's terrible.
Men there in the jacket and tie.
Thank you. I think if Prince Andrew wishes to do the honourable thing and leave the country with his family, there may be a couple of spare bedrooms in Montecito.
With Harry and Meghan, you're thinking, of course. Yes, man here.
I think it has to start somewhere, right? There's this shroud of secrecy across the whole thing. And if we make an example of him, then maybe the rest of the world will follow. We've got the Epstein files and all of these other things, and they just work in the shadows. So by making an example of him, I think that'd be a really good start.
But is this something you think the government should be doing, or do you think the royal family should be doing it themselves?
Brave stance, yeah.
But what could they do? Like, what should
Well, hang on, we've got someone representing the government here, so let's find out. So just clarify for everybody here who may not be familiar with it. As I understand it, MPs are not allowed to discuss the royal family in the Commons. Is that right?
It's a long-standing protocol that MPs are not supposed to get into the detail of debating the royal family. You can talk about constitutional issues in the Commons, but you're not supposed to get into the personal details of a particular member of the royal family.
And Keir Starmer's made it clear he's not going to make time for MPs to debate Prince Andrew, but we are having this Public Accounts Committee inquiry into Royal Lodge, and this is something that Keir Starmer is supporting.
Yes.
What do you think can come out of that? What is the outcome, do you think, that would be most desirable?
So I think the public...
Do you think he should leave?
I think the Public Accounts Committee is going to dig into the detail around the leasing arrangements for Royal Lodge.
Which have been in the public domain for almost 2 decades, actually.
Yeah, and
so they're coming quite late to this.
There's a peppercorn rent, isn't there? And then it's a question of how was the maintenance paid for? Was there an advance payment on leasing the lodge? There's certain questions that need to be asked.
What we are told, well, a lot of it in the public domain, which is why I'm interested as to what exactly they think they're going to find out. So, as we are told, something like 8.75 million was given by Andrew up front. He then is liable for the maintenance of the property. He's got a lease that goes on till 2078, something like that. And in return for all that upfront payment, he pays a peppercorn rent, which could be nothing, could be £1, it could be something like that. So what is there left for them to find out, and what do you think could happen as a result?
Well, I think they've got to dig into where the money's coming from. I mean, sunlight is the best disinfectant, so we need to establish the facts. King Charles has made it clear that Prince Andrew no longer receives any public money in terms of the royal allowance that he used to get, which was £1 million. That's gone. I think he only is getting his Royal Navy pension in terms of that's income that we know about. So I think until all of the facts are established, it's difficult to say much more about the work that the Public Accounts Committee is going to do, but we very much welcome the fact that they are going to launch that inquiry.
And do you think he should stay in Royal Lodge in Great Windsor Park for this peppercorn rent?
Well, I think it is best for the royal family to determine that, because I think we fully support what the King has done in terms of removing Andrew's titles, stopping all of the public money that was going to him. Any further action, I think, should be based on a conversation between the King and Andrew himself. One thing I would want to say is we do, for perfectly understandable reasons, we get into the conversation about Andrew, but I just think it's really important as well that we remember the victims in all of this. Virginia Giuffre, incredibly brave in what she did, utterly tragic that she took her own life. And there are many, many more like her, and we need to get to the bottom of this network, at the centre of which was a monster, Jeffrey Epstein. And it is absolutely right. It's not, when I say sunlight's the best disinfectant, not just around financial matters, but also what actually happened. Now, Andrew has said that he is prepared to go and give evidence and share information in these inquiries that I think could be helpful with the inquiries. I hope that he does that. He should be as good as his word, and he should go and do that.
All right. Well, I guess we will find out. I'm going to take another question now, in my determination to fit all four in. Tony Greenidge, where are you sitting? Oh, there you are.
Have the resignations from the grooming gangs inquiry undermined it fatally?
So, it's quite hard to keep up because this story keeps moving, but at time of recording, we have a number of survivors of terrible abuse who have called on the Minister for Safeguarding, Jess Phillips, who is co-chairing the inquiry, as I understand it. They've asked her to quit, and they've expressed dissatisfaction and concern with a number of aspects about the inquiry. You've also got a number of abuse survivors who said they will only stay with the inquiry if Jess Phillips stays. So you've got two sets of polarised opinions there, and then she's co-leading the inquiry. And then you have two prospective chairpeople who have both quit. And one certainly has accused politicians of politicking about it and losing sight of what it should actually be about. Harriet.
Yeah, well, there is no inquiry. And actually, I prefer the term rape gangs rather than grooming gangs. I think that sanitises it a bit too much. These were rape gangs. And I think the victims have been incredibly brave about campaigning relentlessly to try and get the kind of inquiry that they want to see. And it was about a year ago that those campaigning for this were told that they were jumping on a right-wing bandwagon. The Home Office, the Home Secretary at the time, the government seemed extremely reluctant and in fact voted down a proposition that we put in Parliament for there to be a proper inquiry. I think it should be judge-led. I think it should start immediately. I think these victims, who are just unbelievably courageous, deserve nothing less.
And do you think Jess Phillips should be in charge of it?
Well, I think she made a very, very... I mean, she is someone whose career campaigning on this issue is something that I respect enormously. I do respect her enormously, but I do think she needs to stand aside from this because...
Even though some survivors are saying she needs to stay on.
Because on Monday or Tuesday, whenever it was, when she came to the Commons, she actually declared that what these victims were saying was false, and it was demonstrably true. And so I think she's put herself in a very, very difficult position, and I do think she should stand aside and make sure that this becomes a judge-led inquiry and is set up, and stop dragging feet, and let's get on and
let me just ask you
inquiry.
about, because it's probably worth pointing out, I expect other people may point it out, that there were several trials of many men raping or grooming, however you want to put it, between 2010 and 2020. There was no national inquiry under the Conservatives. And Jim Gamble, former police officer who spent a lot of time working with victims of child abuse, has singled out Kemi Badenoch, amongst others, as weaponising this issue now. Is that what you're doing?
I really hope I'm not, because I really want to, as I started with my opening remarks, I think we've got to salute these incredibly brave women who have experienced these appalling activities. And so I think that we've got to put what they want first and foremost, and we've got to respect the campaigning that they've put in, and we have got to move forward with their support.
Nadine, have these resignations undermined it fatally?
Yeah, they have. And can I go one step further than Harriet? They weren't just rape gangs, they were Pakistani rape gangs raping young white girls. And for many years, and these young girls have been through the most horrific experience living in areas where they have been, their complaints were suppressed, where the police even at times tried to tell them they were the criminals. They've been through the most appalling experience, and they are incredibly brave.
Can I just point out, Nadine, that you're right to say there were disproportionate numbers of men from Asian backgrounds. There were also white people, but they were disproportionately
90%,
Asian.
yes. So should Jess Phillips stand down? Yes, she should. Harriet, when she appeared at the government dispatch box on Tuesday, she not only did not tell the truth, but she gaslit those victims. She was emotionally incontinent. She behaved in a way that no minister should ever behave. And I'm afraid that's always been the case. That's always been the Jess Phillips show. As far as I'm concerned, having watched Jess Phillips over a long period of time, yes, I respect the work that she did before she arrived in Parliament. Since she's been in Westminster, it's very much often about Jess Phillips. But can I just say something else, Fiona? I think the inquiry should be cancelled as of now, because it's never going to work. And there are other ways to do this. So, for example, when I was an MP in my constituency, Parliament has incredible powers. We held a court hearing in Parliament on an issue in my constituency. We had a parliamentary commission formed following the 2008 crash, which can actually subpoena witnesses. I think, given that these victims have told us over the past few days that any questions they want to ask have to be approved first and filtered, that we need to see and hear what they have to say. I think it should be a parliamentary commission. I think it should be cross-party, across the House. It should be joint chaired by cross-party politicians, and it should be filmed from beginning to end, so that these girls, these young women, can say their piece and know that the world will be hearing what they say, that it is apolitical, that it is completely balanced, and it's done in a formal way, and it's done quickly and doesn't drag on for years. I think that would be a far better way to go about this than inquiry. They will never agree on a chair. As a minister, I had a number of inquiries that I had to deal with. They will never agree on a chair. It will always be politicised if a political party is in government of the day. There will always be issues like this. So take it, an inquiry is not going to work. Stop the inquiry, take it to a parliamentary commission, and let us see, all of us, and hear unfiltered what these young women have to say, and let it be televised.
Yes, woman there with the glasses.
Is this not actually a wider issue, absolutely the grooming gangs, horrific story. But violence against women and girls is at an epidemic level here in the UK. And, you know, we've seen reports from the BBC this week since their BBC Panorama programme on Undercover in the Police. Over 300 reports have come forward about systemic misogyny within the actual police. So how on earth are we meant to tackle any of these issues if actually the people we're meant to trust on the inside are the ones reinforcing these views? And that's exactly what happened within the grooming gangs. You know, people came forward and they were not believed for a really long time.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And at the very back.
Yeah, so why is F so much focused on the ethnicities of the people in this case, but not in the Prince Andrew and Epstein case?
Okay. Let's hear from the man in the orange sweatshirt there.
Yeah, have you ever actually worked with anyone who's been raped, Nadine? Because I have.
I haven't worked with someone who's raped, but I've nursed someone who was raped.
What this audience member said, you're absolutely weaponising it. It's disgusting.
I don't think calling for the victims to have their voices...
You're using it for
I'm
political
sorry,
ends.
I completely
That's
refute what you say. Calling for a parliamentary commission when nobody tells these girls what they can say or how they can say it, which is one of their complaints, that all of their questions, all of their issues are being filtered. I don't think calling for them to have the ability to have their voices heard, to have it televised, not to be filtered, not to be tampered with, in a cross-party parliamentary commission is weaponising anything.
Well, that's
it's
after
giving
you've
those girls a
bashed your
chance.
opponent politicians for a good portion of your speech. So it's all well and good talking about cross-party, but you're using it to get favour with the people who are sympathetic to your views. It's disgusting. We're talking about rape victims.
Absolutely.
It's bigger than optics. It's a disgrace.
All right, let's get round our panel. Mariella.
I think I very much agree with what the lady in the glasses, hi, said a moment ago, because I think that, you know, this is obviously a much larger issue. I think it's really important that the victims' voices are heard. I think that since the inquiry hasn't even started yet, the idea that they're being silenced is an erroneous one.
No, they have been. They've said that. They've given evidence.
They may have said it, but I think that if you're a victim of the sort of circumstances that they've lived through and they're raped from an early age and so on, I think you're talking about, you know, we talk about victims as though they all think with one mind. You know, this is a group of victims, some of whom have decided to extract themselves from the inquiry. A larger group have decided to, at the moment, stay within it. I think that it does seem particularly shambolic, and I think a chair should definitely have been set, and I think it's unfortunate that we were looking at people from the police force, from the social services, which are the very services that these girls feel let down by. I think that Jess Phillips has done incredible work about violence against women, and I'm not sure that I really understand what it is that she's supposed to have done wrong in this situation. And why lied about what? What has she lied about? I mean, that's a really big accusation.
Well, it's not my
make.
accusation.
And you know for sure that Jess Phillips has lied about something.
So it's actually been proven, that dispatch box on Tuesday.
Wait, what's been proven?
So
what's been proven?
The actual details are that she denied that the terms of reference of the inquiry, the girls had asked for it to be expanded, and Jess Phillips.
See, I could help you out here, Nadine, but
Go on,
you're the
Fiona,
one making the allegation. I know, but you're the one making the allegation, so I presume you can stand it up.
So
she
so
said
the actual words of what it was that she said on Tuesday. I know that the girls had asked for the remit to be expanded. Jess Phillips said they'd never asked for that. They had. It was proven after Tuesday that, in fact, the evidence is there. They had. On Tuesday at the dispatch box, she said they hadn't. It's been proven that they had.
So, look, so actually...
And that's what the girls have accused.
But the remit of the inquiry has to be expanded.
Can I just get some facts in here? The reason I let you carry on, Nadine. Well, kind of, but if you're going to make an allegation, you have to be able to stand it up. So the way this is reported is that a number of survivors did not want the remit of the inquiry to be expanded. And they were part of a panel that was sent an email just asking if the inquiry should be expanded. And this is what they objected to, and Jess Phillips said, apparently, that reports the government had tried to dilute the inquiry, i.e. expand it, were untrue. That's the centre of it. It's fairly complex, as you can see. But since you made the allegation, I thought I'd be...
I was being very careful with my words, because it is quite a difficult situation.
I don't think that's something that I would call a lie. You know, and
well,
I think that the language and the language that's used constantly at the moment.
Okay.
If I could just finish my sentence,
of this,
Nadine.
Mariella.
Hang on. Let Mariella finish, and then we're going to let other people come.
The language that you use in relation to something that I think is incredibly sensitive and that most people want to see the best route taken is incredibly inflammatory, whether it's about the ethnicity of the perpetrators, whether it's about ministers lying. I don't really understand the principle and the point in escalating it like this. I think that what we want is an inquiry that illustrates how this could have happened, what we want to know, and that's why I think that that Jess Phillips does actually want to expand the inquiry to an extent, because we know who the perpetrators were in this instance, and many of them have gone to jail. But what we need to understand is how this could happen in Britain today, how these girls could be abused in the way they were, and it be looked over and bypassed and ignored. And that's what's important, to get to the heart of that.
And let the girls
tell us. Let's hear from some other people. It's the man in the blue shirt there and the glasses, yes.
Yeah, I think it's quite easy to take the politicking out, and that's to appoint an independent judge-led inquiry.
Yeah.
Why has the government got to be involved in the findings of the inquiry?
All right, well, let's put that to a person representing the government.
Thank you very much. Look, this is one of the worst scandals in our history. These working class girls were ignored and let down by the state that should have been there to protect them, turned a blind eye, and it is completely and utterly unacceptable what happened to them. It's horrific. We will leave no stone unturned until we have got to the truth, and we will ensure that there is accountability. This inquiry is absolutely going ahead. It is not going to be watered down.
But Stephen,
it is going to focus on the grooming
how on earth
gangs.
has it got to this point? You've got people quitting, you've got other people saying it's got to be different, you've got the two chairs saying we're not going to touch it with the barge pole.
Well, you know what?
To this point?
Well, look, I have the utmost respect for the women that are part of this process. And you know what? If I were them, I wouldn't trust the government very much either. I would be saying, you know, what's going on? I don't really believe this, I don't believe that. Why? Given the background. But I would also say there are around about, I think, 25 or 30 women on the panel. 4 of them have taken the position that they've decided to take. I absolutely respect and understand that. As you rightly pointed out, another 5 have now said they will only stay on the panel if Jess Phillips remains in post. So it is obviously, you know, there's a range of views. Not everybody agrees on the issue. One other thing I would say is that back in January, Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper, who was Home Secretary at the time, said one thing we are going to do is reopen 1,200 historic cases that had been closed. And as a result of that, there are men who have been arrested and are being interrogated right now, and I hope that that will lead to prosecutions. We are also putting through the Children's Wellbeing Bill, which is going to lead to mandatory reporting, which is going to have multi-agency protection programmes. It is disappointing that both the Conservatives and Reform members of Parliament voted against that bill, because those will bring in measures that can strengthen our ability to ensure that this sort of thing never happens again. On the point of who should chair it, I mean, we did have, in the last review was conducted by Alexis Jay, who was was a social worker. I think universally people felt she did a great job. She came forward with 20 recommendations. The Jay recommendations sat on the shelf. They were not implemented by the previous government. We are picking up those recommendations. Okay. We are implementing, but in the meantime, we of course have to get a chair, but we want to ensure that the women on the panel are at the heart of choosing who that chair is. We're probably never going to get unanimity and everybody being absolutely agreeing, but we want to develop a consensus so we get the right chair, the right person at the right time to do this very important job.
Just to be clear, the data shows that most suspects of group-based child sexual offences are white. But the Louise Casey report also showed that men of Asian ethnic heritage are disproportionately represented. That is true to say.
Yes, but the figure I was referring to were the specific rape gangs who raped these girls who were members of the inquiry in the areas
I'm just
where
giving you the data as we know it.
Blackpool, but the areas where it took place.
Well, this is the data as we understand it.
But how does that help us deal with sexual violence against women in this country in general? If it was disproportionate in those areas and in this case, then obviously that has to be part of the inquiry. But in general, if we're trying to understand how these things happen and why women are in this country, you know, affected by extreme levels of sexual violence, then how does it help by naming the ethnicity of a group in a particular area of the country at one particular time?
These girls
How does it
very
help?
specifically covered up.
Listen, this is a hugely important topic, and I fully recognise the strength of opinion. I promise I get 4 questions in, so forgive me, I'm just going to try and do that.
Go on, Fiona.
Come on. Not in any sense to downplay the importance of this, because I absolutely recognise that. But we did have a lot on this, so I'm going to go for it. Ellie Taylor, where are you? Off you go.
Is it right to say that Brexit has harmed the UK economy?
Well, so we didn't hear the government mentioning Brexit an awful lot recently, but now Rachel Reeves says that Brexit is making Britain's poor productivity worse, or the way we've gone about Brexit. You've got the Bank of England Governor, Andrew Bailey, saying that Brexit will have a negative impact on the UK economic growth for the foreseeable future. This is clearly what Labour want to talk about now.
It's absolutely clear that the way that Brexit got done damaged our economy. The Bank of England, the Governor of the Bank of England says it, the Office for Budget Responsibility has said it probably is about a 4% hit to our growth. It's clearly affected productivity. I mean, it's clear that if you put up trade barriers between your most important trade partner, there will be consequences of that. That was made clear all the way through. And then in addition to that, when you have an utterly botched way of dealing with it, with all sorts of parts of the deal being done on the back of an envelope and not properly thought through, that has made it worse. We clearly have to reset our relationship with the European Union. The government is doing that. We're working towards getting a much better deal around the way that food and livestock is traded between the UK and the EU. We are moving towards much better relationships around things like mobility schemes. We've got to, step by step, improve that relationship, get much closer, because it is our most important trading partner and it is worth a huge amount to our economy. There's no doubt at all that it has done damage, and I think it's important that we face up to that. I think certain members of other political parties are in denial about it. It's time to have a clear and honest national conversation, because until we're all clear about the causes of the problems that we're facing, it is extremely difficult to find a solution to them.
But if you're blaming Brexit for harming the economy, there's 2 aspects of that. Are you basically trying to wriggle out of any responsibility yourselves? And also, how does that make people here? I mean, Swindon voted majority for Brexit. How do you want voters to feel who voted for Brexit?
I don't think there's any point going back into.
Well, you're saying that decision is to blame for Britain's poor performance.
It was democratically, that is what people did. They voted to leave, and that was the decision that the British people made. The people who were in charge at the time then completely botched the negotiations, and we are now paying the price for that.
Botched it. You botched it, Harriet, that's what he's saying.
Well, can I say the following, which is that I think that clearly it was a change, and clearly there are advantages of that change, which Stephen is not choosing to underline this evening. One of the advantages is that we have a completely different and better trade deal with the United States and with many other countries around the world than the European Union does. So that is just demonstrably the case. The second thing I would say, and I say as someone who I've been on the Treasury Select Committee now for the last 5 years.
I know, but you are shadow trade. How much is that US deal worth United Kingdom?
Well, it's better than the, you know, for example, our tariffs are, I'm not a fan of tariffs myself, but they are 10% compared to the European Union having to pay significantly higher. So we have got a better trade deal objectively.
But is it worth more money than the deal that we had with the European Union?
Well, the one we have with the European Union... The one we have with the European Union is zero tariff and zero quota. So it's much better than the one we have with the US. But it's very much the case over the last 5 years that we've been scrutinising this on the Treasury Select Committee. It's very much the case that the economic changes in terms of...
Are you struggling here, Harriet?
I'm not particularly struggling. I don't think that you can look at the French economy or the German economy or any of the other economies in the EU and say they're doing any better than the
Let me bring Nadine.
They're not.
Let me bring, and I'll come to you, Mariella. Is it fair to blame Brexit for harming the economy?
Well, the point Harriet's just made about how poorly Germany is performing, and France and Italy and every other EU country, I think actually makes the point that do we want to be at that Germany is doing far worse than we are at the moment economically? Do we want to be in the European Union? Because they are sinking like stones, their economies, that we were a year ago doing quite well. We were the fastest performing economy in the G7.
So do you think Andrew Bailey is wrong? Do you think Andrew Bailey is wrong, the Governor of the Bank of England, when he says Brexit will have a negative impact on our economic growth for the foreseeable future?
He's talking about foreseeable future. We get a lot of this. We get a lot of the foreseeable. And
well, in fairness, he can't look into the unforeseeable.
He can't look into a crystal ball either. He doesn't have it. And they are historically...
So he doesn't know what he's talking about.
They are historically regularly wrong, as we know with inflation rates, which was predicted to be 4%, it's actually 3%. We know economists get this wrong all the time. But what I would say is more damaging to our economy at the moment is Rachel Reeves, who's put up taxes last year when she said during the general election that she never was going to, said she wasn't going to tax working people but put up national insurance, which of course taxes every working person. And she's about to put up taxes again. The damage that's being done to our economy is being done by our Chancellor, not the foreseeable things that may or may not happen in the future.
Mariella, I know you feel strongly about this, but you've only got about a minute, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to know how much that US trade deal is worth in comparison to the trading deal that we had with the EU. And we know for a fact, I know you don't like foreseeable things, but we know for a fact that it's damaged our economy to sort of 9 to 10%. Now, Germany has its own issues.
People take issue with that.
Well, there's an awful lot of business leaders who, between 4% and 10%. I think that it would be a lot shorter conversation if we went through the list of benefits that we've had as a result of leaving the EU. Where's the abandonment of all that red tape? You know, how's it improved our lives? Is the NHS in a better situation? You know, I think that ultimately, we know that it's damaged our economy. OK, we can argue about the percentages, but to deny it altogether is crazy. So let's talk about the advantages. I'm just not hearing them from anybody. And I think that you use reference to Germany.
We just did an India trade deal.
Yes, I know we did. Yeah. Marvellous. That's 2 trade deals that we've managed.
Quite a lot.
Quite honestly.
I believe.
OK, but let's talk about the figures and actually what tangibly the economic damage that leaving the EU has done to our country and the advantages that it's brought, of which I am particularly unaware.
Mariella, a year ago, we were the fastest growing economy in the G7.
Gosh, that's 12 months ago,
until Labour came into power.
We were the fastest growing economy in the G7 for the first 6 months of this year. Wages up for 3.5 million workers because of the minimum wage.
We're out of... I'm not sure what that's got to do with Brexit. I'm not sure what that's got to do with Brexit, but anyway... Will you forgive...
correcting the record.
Will you forgive me, because I can see lots of you got your hands up, but we have run out of time, because we spent so much on the previous question, so I'm so sorry about that, because I really wanted to allow them all equal time, and I just didn't manage to do that. We're out of time. That's it from Swindon. Remember, next week we are in Bradford, but for now, thank you to the panel, thank you to all for coming, and of course, thank you to you at home for watching. Bye-bye.